Hello everyone listening to Stories on the Panda Tale channel. Today's story has the following synopsis. In my previous life, on my wedding day, Marcus Hunt brought home another woman, saying he wanted to take her as his concubine, forcing me to accept it. I immediately wrote a divorce letter to sever our ties, but they imprisoned me in the manor and tortured me to death. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to that very wedding day, falling into the water with the concubine. Marcus shouted loudly, "Save the concubine!" I stopped struggling, sank deep into the water, pulled her up, then broke her neck with one hand. I'm sorry, but this old lady's rebirth is just the beginning of destruction for all of you. I wish you all happy listening. I am the most favored princess by the emperor. Marcus and I were childhood sweethearts, betrothed since we were in our mother's wombs. At 17, he achieved military glory on the battlefield and was granted a title. Before His Majesty, he swore he would crown me with the phoenix crown and red wedding dress. Marry me, give me 10 miles of red dowry, and in this life and this lifetime, there would only be me. But on our wedding be me. With guests filling the hall and citizens celebrating together, he brought a woman dressed in bright red wedding clothes, saying he wanted to take her as his concubine, asking me to be understanding. With just one sentence, he completely destroyed the couple everyone had admired and the unprecedented grand ceremony. The guests all looked at each other, then all eyes turned to me. With just a slight slip, I would become the laughingstock of the entire capital. Those noble ladies who had long been jealous of me now showed clear mockery on their faces, just waiting for me to lose control and lose face. But I remained extremely calm, speaking slowly. "This is Lily, come meet your elder sister." She timidly stepped forward, her slender figure and gentle appearance. When she bowed in greeting, her delicate posture was like a willow swaying in the wind, making people's hearts flutter. But before she could kneel, Marcus hurriedly stepped forward, anxiously helping her up. "Your body is weak. No need for such formalities." "It's all right," she said softly while gently leaning into Marcus's embrace, making his eyes fill with tenderness, even his tone becoming gentle. But I would feel heartbroken. The two were affectionate and intimate as if in their own world, while I stood there both awkward and out of place, like an outsider who didn't know their place. Yet I clearly saw in Lily's eyes as she quietly glanced over, full of provocation and smugness. Marcus was completely unaware, only looking at me with a pleading and apologetic expression I had never seen before. "Eleanor, Lily has a gentle, kind nature and doesn't compete for anything. She only wants to be by my side. If you could forgive her, I would be extremely grateful." I smiled and raised an eyebrow. "What if I don't agree?" His eyes suddenly darkened, pursing his lips. I knew him too well. This was his habit when he began to feel annoyed. Sure enough, right after I heard him say, "Eleanor, stop making a fuss." "Who exactly is making a fuss?" I looked at him calmly, my eyes blazing. "The emperor bestowed this marriage, a grand national ceremony, yet you disregard all dignity, wanting to take a foreign woman from the borderlands as a concubine. This isn't just humiliating me, but slapping His Majesty in the face." He was immediately stunned, apparently not expecting me to know Lily's background so well. Panic flashed in his eyes, but he still tried to remain calm. "Lily has been freed from her slave status. She has nothing to do with those criminals exiled for their crimes anymore." As soon as he finished speaking, the hall buzzed with discussion. My uncle could no longer hold back, angrily shouting, "Marcus, don't go too far. Though Eleanor lost her mother young, she is the emperor's most beloved niece, raised personally by this prince. Your behavior today is ungrateful and disrespectful. This prince will immediately report to His Majesty and charge you with defying imperial orders." "No need." I stopped him, glancing at Marcus, then turning to look at the chief eunuch hurrying from the main entrance. "The imperial edict has arrived. Received decree. In my previous life, to save face for all parties, I tried not to make a big scene. I gritted my teeth and endured, going through the wedding ceremony with him. When Uncle Emperor found out, he was furious, saying that the only granddaughter of the guardian princess, The little princess he treasured like a precious jewel, absolutely could not suffer such humiliation. If he had known earlier, he would have definitely issued a decree to cancel the marriage. So in this rebirth, as soon as I saw red decorations filling the manor, I immediately sent my maid to the palace to request a decree canceling the marriage. Fortunately, everything was still in time. As soon as she saw the chief eunuch appear, Lily immediately panicked, timidly tugging at Marcus's sleeve, her eyes reddening, tears about to fall. Brother Marcus, Lily didn't want things to turn out this way. Marcus immediately grasped her hand tightly, his gaze determined. Don't be afraid, no matter what, I will protect you completely. Looking at him now, I only found it ironically amusing. In my previous life, he also once held my cold corpse in extreme pain, saying he regretted it, saying he had wronged me, saying in the end he still couldn't protect me completely. Men's vows aren't worth a penny, but Lily believed without doubt, her face flushing with emotion. With Brother Marcus by my side, even death, Lily would have no regrets. As she spoke, her tears fell like broken pearls, as if suppressing countless grievances, choking up unable to speak, making those around feel sympathy. She covered her face and sobbed for a long time, then suddenly knelt before me, reaching to grab the hem of my wedding dress. I stepped aside, not bothering to hide the disgust in my eyes. Don't dirty my wedding clothes. She missed and fell to the ground, supporting herself with trembling hands to sit up, her wrist already scraped red in a large patch. She quietly glanced at me, her eyes seeming to endure yet also plead. She bit her lip trying to pull her sleeve to cover the wound, but in her haste, the more she pulled, the more bruises were revealed. Whispers began to rise around us, mostly sympathetic, saying I was cold and heartless, without any compassion. Hearing this, Lily's eyes suddenly flashed with satisfaction. She deliberately struggled to kneel and moved closer to me, raising her small tear-soaked face, desperately pleading. Princess, it's all Lily's fault. Lily doesn't dare compete anymore. Lily asks for nothing. Just please don't make things difficult for Brother Marcus anymore. Lily, seeing she was about to faint from crying, Marcus quickly embraced her, his arms tightly holding her close, his hands constantly stroking her knees. After a while, he looked up at me, his eyes showing a coldness I had never seen before. Eleanor Jung, if anything happens to Lily, I absolutely won't forgive you. How much is your forgiveness worth? I chuckled, shrugging with complete indifference. Everyone clearly saw I hadn't touched her at all. So many eyes here as witnesses. Lord Hunt, don't falsely accuse me. Being refuted by me left him speechless, his face immediately darkening with embarrassment turned to anger, gritting his teeth in accusation. Eleanor Jung, why have you become so cruel, so unreasonable? You weren't like this before. Before was before, now is now. I looked straight into his eyes without avoiding them. Want to see me be even more outrageous? Want to try? Just as the chief eunuch entered, everyone immediately knelt to receive him, but what he held wasn't an imperial edict, but an oral decree from the Empress. His Majesty's headaches have flared up again, making it difficult for him to come personally. The wedding ceremony should proceed as usual. Other matters can be discussed later. I wasn't surprised at all. The Empress had never liked me, always believing the Emperor spoiled me too much, overshadowing her only daughter. Using this excuse to assert her authority was completely expected, and those noble ladies who already disliked me now felt emboldened, practically wearing the word mockery on their faces. Their malice was blatant without concealment, immediately opening their mouths to ridicule. There's a saying circulating in the capital tonight, you know. How does it go? Wishing for one person's heart, till white hair never to part. What a pity for the princess. From now on you'll only be able to light candles till dawn, keeping company with your own shadow. Before she finished speaking, my maid had already slapped her face with a smack. Insolent. Our princess is the Snow Abyss princess personally titled by the Emperor. How dare someone like you casually mock her? Her smooth cheek immediately showed a bright red handprint, her face horrified as she held her cheek, looking at me in disbelief. I gently tilted my hand, using the tea lid to brush away the foam on top, slowly speaking, Miss Harper, do you have any other brilliant insights? This princess is generous, I don't mind gifting you a few more slaps. Of course she wasn't willing to accept it, wanting to fight back against me, but her eyes were already red with grievance as she looked toward her parents. They all feared my power, immediately avoiding her gaze, their faces practically writing, "Why did you provoke her?" She then turned her pleading gaze to the noble ladies and young lords she was close with, but they all turned away in unison, pretending not to see. Seeing no one would help her, she pitifully sniffled, choking out, "This servant knows her wrong. Please forgive me, princess." But it wasn't just her, the daughter of Duke Ning's manor had also never liked me. Now seeing me not only turn the situation around, but also use it to establish my authority, her petty thoughts couldn't be suppressed. She immediately needled me about lacking tolerance, bringing shame to the royal family. I raised an eyebrow and smiled lightly, calmly countering. "What's wrong? Are you also jealous that Miss Lily is climbing high branches, reaching the sky in one step? Or do you also want to squeeze in as Marcus's concubine?" She had long secretly admired Marcus, even once shamelessly using public opinion to pressure him to marry her as an equal wife, but was still flatly rejected by him. Now having her dirty secret exposed by me in front of everyone, her face turned bright red. She bit her lip hard, unable to speak a word, finally just stamping her foot and running out of the hall. I withdrew my gaze, sweeping it across everyone in the hall one by one. They all immediately lowered their heads pretending to be busy. No one dared look at me. This group thought that since the emperor no longer publicly favored me like before, I would fall from grace. They didn't expect everything was within my calculations. Today the empress harbored resentment, using this matter to assert her authority and not allowing me to break off the engagement. But when the tide turns, I'm afraid she'll have to beg me for a divorce. Uncle saw the situation and his eyes reddened with heartache. He was my mother's younger brother, and had spoiled me since childhood. While everyone was seeing off the chief eunuch, he lowered his voice to speak to me. "Eleanor, let's go. Even if it means defying the imperial will, Uncle absolutely won't let you suffer any grievance." I gently placed my hand on his to signal him. "Don't worry, it's fine. Just kill them all clean." He was immediately stunned, while I adjusted my clothes, brushing off a small white flower petal that had blown onto my shoulder. Stepping on the ground. A concubine is a slave. She willingly degraded herself to be a slave and servant. But I am the posthumous daughter of the guardian princess, a princess personally titled by the emperor. If I accidentally beat a slave to death, who would dare say half a word? He looked at me in bewilderment, his eyes full of obvious shock and complexity. He certainly never could have imagined that I, who once couldn't bear to step on an ant, could become so cruel. Speaking of killing so lightly, I didn't plan to explain, because I couldn't tell him that in my previous life I had signed the divorce papers but was imprisoned in the manor with no escape. I also couldn't say that when I was pregnant, Marcus personally forced me to drink abortion medicine. The despair at that time drowned everything. I especially couldn't mention when Lily and I were both captured by enemy forces. He chose her without hesitation, shooting an arrow straight through my heart. The last words that reached my ears before my soul left my body were about the mass grave in the western part of the city, where wild dogs often roamed. The best place to dump bodies. I was blind in seeing people, dead and lost, so I accept it. But if given another chance, I should also let them see what it means to be fearsome without a blade. What is vicious cunning? Since the Empress's oral decree wasn't clear, Marcus insisted on completing the ceremony while also taking a concubine. Everyone looked at me again, their eyes showing some pity, as if mocking that no matter how strong I appeared, without my husband's heart I was still pitiful and sad. I wasn't in a hurry to prove anything. Instead, I almost burst out laughing. "Marcus, my memory isn't very good, but I remember I already gave you some face earlier." He endured on his face, but his tone was extremely firm. No matter what, I must marry Lily. No regrets. Not good. I clapped once, ringing like jade bells colliding. Then, as you wish. I lifted the hem of my gold-threaded embroidered skirt, turned and sat in the main seat, coldly saying, "A secondary wife entering must serve tea to the main wife. If you and she perform the ceremony, 3 kowtows and 9 bows, this princess will show great mercy and let her enter the manor." Humiliation appeared in his eyes, but he still didn't hesitate, immediately kneeling down. Very well, if someone truly becomes the laughingstock of the entire capital today, it definitely won't be me. Seeing him like this, Lily was heartbroken to the extreme, hurriedly pulling him up. He looked at her apologetically, saying, "I'm sorry for making you suffer." Lily continuously shook her head, tears suddenly welling in her eyes as she looked at me pleadingly, biting her lip saying, "As long as I can be by his side is enough. Lily doesn't care about titles or glory. But I do care. I lie awake every night, only hoping to replace him in the position of war god." I reached for the wine pot on the table, pouring 3 full cups before me, calmly saying, "Marcus, your mother, General Ming, was once my mother's right hand, loyal without divided heart, following her for over 10 years. That year, relying on that achievement, she begged the emperor to bestow a marriage decree for us. That's also the origin of your name. And you and I studied and practiced martial arts together since childhood sweethearts, never doubting each other's feelings. So even though I'm more talented than you, better at military strategy than you, I was still willing to lower myself, to peacefully be a gentle and virtuous mistress of the Marquis's manor. Even the wedding dress I embroidered stitch by stitch with my own hands full of hope. Even so you wouldn't lose military power by marrying a princess. I refused Uncle Emperor's offer to inherit his title. But you truly don't deserve it." I raised a cup of wine and brought it before him. He always understood me. In just a moment he guessed my intention, his eyes immediately showing rare horror. "Eleanor." I looked straight into his eyes, sternly reminding him. "No regrets, remember." He hesitated several times, his eyes gradually reddening, almost trembling as he reached out to take it, but just as his fingertips were about to touch, I let go. The jade cup fell to the ground, shattering into pieces with a sharp piercing sound. I swept my sleeve and threw the remaining 2 cups to the ground, my voice thundering throughout the hall. 1 cup to heaven and earth, 2 sounds to inform parents, 3 times to notify the gods. Today you, for a common woman, defy your mother, resist imperial orders. You and I cut robes and sever feelings, all gratitude and loyalty ended. From now on, men marry and women wed without relation. It cannot be. He hadn't even waited for me to finish before regretting, anxiously grabbing my hand, tears glistening in his eyes, almost pleading. "Eleanor, we have an imperial marriage decree. It cannot be changed." My gaze slowly stopped on Lily, the meaning too clear without words. Marcus looked at her increasingly pale face, hesitated a moment, but finally spoke. "Lily, I must marry her too. Then perform the ceremony. I originally had no intention of keeping him. These words were just for outsiders to hear, so I wouldn't be labeled as heartless and unrighteous." The maid received the order and stepped forward to present tea. Marcus and Lily exchanged glances, their hands tightly clasped, together bowing their heads 3 times. I sat straight, neither avoiding nor dodging. Just then I heard whispers beginning to rise from the crowd, saying that as a man standing tall between heaven and earth, Marcus was so cowardly, truly staining the reputation of a famous general. These words would spread throughout the capital by tonight, becoming entertainment at tea gatherings. Marcus didn't miss a single word, his face alternating between white and green, extremely unsightly. I pretended not to notice, covering my mouth with a light laugh. "Lord Marquis being so solemn, it seems you still have me in your heart after all." Before I finished speaking, Lily's expression slightly changed, a flash of viciousness passing through her eyes as she looked at me, then quickly hiding it, returning to her usual weak and harmless appearance. But later, when she was led to the bridal chamber, she deliberately brushed past me, using a voice only we could hear, saying, Sister will soon know who is in the Marquis's heart. Is that so? The corner of my mouth slightly curved up. I'm looking forward to it too. I thought she had some brilliant scheme, but it turned out to be just a ploy of falsely accusing me of pushing her into the water. Marcus rushed over in panic, not even understanding what happened before urgently shouting, "Save the concubine! Quickly save the concubine!" I laughed coldly, stopped struggling, dove underwater to pull Lily up, then in one moment tightened my grip and broke her neck. Under the shimmering yet bone-chilling cold water, I looked around, finally stopping on Marcus. The corners of my mouth slowly curved up, blooming into a blood-soaked smile. "I'm sorry. This old lady's rebirth is just the beginning of destruction for all of you." Marcus's face was full of horror, pain to the extreme, like a man who had lost his soul as he desperately shook Lily, trying to wake her, but her body was already limp, her head lolling to one side without any strength, having long stopped breathing. Marcus nearly went mad, his eyes blazing red, roaring as he questioned me. Why did you have to do this?" I just quietly looked at him, gently smiling, not saying a word. In my previous life when I died, I didn't even have a chance to question, only fresh blood gushing from my mouth, choking my throat, leaving only hoarse moans between convulsions. Now, when he tightly grabbed my shoulders, his eyes fierce, looking no different from a wild beast that had just lost its beloved, roaring in despair. Why did you kill her? Do you know her?" Before he finished, "I can bring her back to life." He suddenly froze, stammering. What did you say? Didn't she always claim to have the phoenix fate?" I looked straight into his eyes, slightly curving my lips in a smile. "Since she's a phoenix, she must go through nirvana to be reborn." That fool actually believed my ridiculous lie. Upon returning, he immediately had Lily's body cremated. No one could stop him. He even followed my instructions exactly, grinding the bones and scattering them along 10 miles of road. When the maids told me about his miserable state, I laughed until I almost couldn't breathe. What a fool! Believing I would spare Lily, he might as well believe I'm the first emperor. And when he came looking for me with murderous intent and rage, I had already set off for the peace marriage. I heard when he learned this news, he was so panicked he forgot the prohibition against leaving the capital while holding military power, and rode after me to the outskirts. Before the farewell pavilion, he forced my carriage to stop, demanding through gritted teeth, "Who allowed you to go for the peace marriage?" "The Emperor, Empress." I listed each person's name, watching his already ugly expression gradually worsen. "Impossible." He angrily interrupted me, seeming even more anxious than I was. "You're going for a peace marriage at the border. The Emperor favors you so much. How could he let you go for a peace marriage? What's impossible about it? Uncle Emperor has always been wary of the military power in your hands, has long wanted to strip it away. That's why this time, when attacking the Northern Territory, he listened to the Empress's recommendation, allowing her foolish brother to lead the army. Unfortunately, that man had great greed but no ability, causing great disaster due to lust, being routed by the enemy, even losing several cities in succession. Now just marrying off one princess can exchange for peace. Why wouldn't they do it? But Princely loves you so much. How could he bear to let you go to that cold, bitter place? Uncle may have patrol troops and can usually contend with you, but faced with imperial authority, no matter how reluctant, he's powerless. He deceived you." Uncle, of course, disagreed. I analyzed the pros and cons, pleaded again and again, questioning repeatedly. Now that Marcus is controlled and that fool has lost power, does Uncle have ambitions to seize power? He's long been accustomed to a leisurely life like drifting clouds and flowing water, has long lost any desire for power, but he couldn't stand it. I kept provoking him, though favored by the Emperor, but always suppressed by Marcus, restricted everywhere. Does Uncle really have no resentment at all? He was stunned for a long time, looking at me with complex eyes. "Eleanor, why do I feel you've changed so much? Or rather, you've returned to your true nature?" I smiled, looking into his eyes. "Uncle, Don't forget I'm the granddaughter of the first female emperor in history, the bloodline of the guardian princess. Years ago, Mother held a spear alone guarding the 14 border provinces. How could a tiger mother give birth to a dog? I naturally cannot bring shame to her. Uncle and mother were born of the same mother. Surely you're not truly willing to be controlled by others. Sure enough, once I mentioned mother, his will was immediately stirred somewhat. What do you want to do? Peace marriage. I looked at him with blazing eyes. Uncle, give me the military forces and underground power mother left at the border. I'll return to you a chance to overturn the court. The next day, Uncle secretly arranged people. In court, they flattered and praised the Empress's foolish brother terribly, making Uncle Emperor even angrier. He immediately demoted him 3 ranks and exiled him to the border, forcing him to start as a soldier from the beginning. At that time, someone timely suggested that with insufficient military force, why not use peace marriage instead of war, marrying off a princess to show sincerity. The Northern Territory has 4 tribes, with blinding sandstorms, cold and bitter at the military frontier. Naturally, no one was willing to marry off their pampered daughter. But how could the Empress forget about such a good thing like me? But when she summoned me to the palace, I just smiled faintly and said, Eleanor naturally wishes to share the Empress's worries, but now Eleanor is already the mistress of the Marquis Manor, willing but unable. If the Empress had agreed to let me break off the engagement a few days ago, then today we could have caught this beautiful opportunity. It's this palace's fault. She continuously lowered her voice to coax, anxiously grabbing my hand. As long as you agree to the peace marriage, I'll give you whatever you want. Since the Empress is so sincere, Eleanor doesn't dare refuse. I smiled with narrowed eyes, opening my mouth to say, this journey to the Northern Territory is over mountains and long roads, life and death uncertain. Surely the Empress isn't at ease about Eleanor either. Therefore, I want all the spies and secret agents the Empress has planted over there. This palace doesn't understand what you're talking about. She quickly withdrew her hand, lowering her eyes to hide the panic in them. This palace is the mother of the nation, mistress of the inner palace, has never had divided loyalty to His Majesty. How could I secretly cultivate such power? I didn't pressure her, just calmly replied. If the Empress has no sincerity to cooperate, then there's no need to continue talking. Just as I finished speaking, I turned to leave. She immediately panicked. Wet. After much consideration, she still had someone bring the golden seal of command to give to me. Of course I nodded in agreement, but Tiffany Chen was furious. She already disliked me, and now I was replacing her in the peace marriage. It was like taking her life. She immediately went to the Palace of Heavenly Purity to find the Emperor to withdraw the decree. When I arrived, she was verbally battling the entire court single-handedly, scolding the civil and military officials until none could lift their heads, their faces bright red. Speaking nonsense is all of you. Who has ever fed you all? Each one of you is fat and prosperous with beer bellies like mountains yet knows no shame. A royal daughter from childhood for over 10 years, eating, dressing, spending, ceremonial displays, how much does it cost? One prince leaving the palace to establish a manor needs how much silver? One corrupt official greasing relationships needs how many treasures? One general leading troops in battle costs how much provisions? Is a princess's extravagance even a fraction of yours? Why can men go to battlefields, can negotiate diplomatic relations, can be in theft as kings and generals, achieving merit and receiving rewards, but when they fail in battle, it's women who must bear the consequences? Peace marriage sounds noble and transcendent, but in reality it's just turning oneself into a beautiful piece of meat on the chopping block, for others to carve at will. The third prince spoke up admiringly. Imperial sister is wrong to say that. Peace marriage demonstrates sincerity and desire for peace, much more important than money. If it's so important, then why don't the 5 imperial brothers go together, one time sending off 5 people? What could demonstrate sincerity more clearly than that? Her eyes blazed like fire. After scolding the princes, she pointed at the emperor, saying, "What nonsense about princesses enjoying the blessings of the realm and should have responsibility to protect the rivers and mountains. The one truly enjoying the blessings of the realm is your majesty, so how much land does your majesty plan to give the princess?" "Father, which piece of land do you plan to give Tiffany?" I listened with sweat soaking my back. Fierce indeed, but such recklessness was good. The emperor also couldn't bear it anymore, clutching his chest and harshly saying, "Insolent." Then ordering her confined without an imperial edict. She couldn't leave the manor half a step. That night I snuck through the dog hole to visit her. She was pacing irritably with hands on her hips. When she heard I was volunteering to go, she gritted her teeth even more angrily. "Foolish. You have no political power, so what political obligation do you have? If two countries want peace, there are ways to achieve peace. If they want war, just one excuse is enough to fight. Sending women for peace marriages, pushing them into the fire pit, using their happiness and sacrifice to exchange for peace. That's not peace, but the weakness and incompetence of those in power. You think you're sacrificing, contributing, but it's actually just stupidity, jumping into the fire pit not worth a penny. Do you understand?" "I understand. I know what I'm doing." Before I could finish, she was already full of opposition, planning to continue persuading. I quickly said, "Tiffany, do you remember Princess Yuan Chao from the frontier history?" "Of course I remember." Mentioning this, her eyes immediately lit up. Princess Yuan Chao was the first female prince in the records, a model for all women under heaven. That year when the sacred ancestor passed away, the new emperor was not yet 15, the court was unstable, powerful ministers monopolized power, plus two countries were at war. Our army continuously lost battles, losing over 10 cities. The people suffered terribly. In this dire situation, Princess Yuanchou voluntarily requested a peace marriage. 3 marriages, 3 kills, 3 generations of enemy khans, finally subduing the frontier and incorporating it into our dynasty's territory. She paused twice sentence, her eyes fluctuating, as if realizing something. "You mean you want to?" I nodded lightly, making a shushing gesture for her to keep quiet, pretending to smile and say, "When I return, don't let me surpass you." "Never." She proudly raised her head. "You still haven't taken back the jade pendant from when you lost to me last time. On the contrary, you need to work harder." Saying this, she took the jade pendant from her chest and returned it to me. I shook my head. "When I returned in triumph, you can personally put it on me." She didn't insist. After a moment of silence, her voice cautious, "Take care of yourself." I smiled lightly, promising to meet again. When Marcus learned the peace marriage had been agreed upon by everyone, he almost couldn't believe it, gritting his teeth saying, "I don't agree. I absolutely don't agree." "Oh," I chuckled, "you want a rebel for me?" He looked at me without refuting, his eyes flickering between light and dark for a long time, his eye rims gradually reddening, the clear torment in his eyes impossible to hide. I put away my teasing demeanor, feeling bitter inside. "You're willing to rebel for me, yet won't speak one truthful word to me. Marcus, today we part, difficult to meet again in the future. Regardless of what hardships you have, I still hope we can be honest with each other." He looked straight at me, his eyes flowing with emotion, as if countless pains wanted to break through the barrier in his heart and surge out. "Someone's coming." A reminder suddenly sounded from behind. Before the words finished, urgent hoofbeats rang out. I immediately collected my emotions, raising my hand to slap Marcus hard. In his bewildered and confused gaze I decisively said, "We've long severed our gratitude and feelings, stop entangling with me." Having said that, I turned and entered the carriage. The driver cracked his whip urging the horses, quickly leaving the farewell pavilion. Long after, the maid beside me lifted carriage curtain to look outside. Marcus was still standing there watching, his lonely figure stretched long under the setting sun. She secretly glanced at me, unable to help speaking. "Princess, you can even forgive a servant, why can't you be lenient with Marcus?" I glanced at her face after the disguise, no longer showing any trace of her former appearance. Lily, I'm not forgiving you. You've paid life for life, the debt is settled. Before Marcus cremated her, I substituted a corpse from the dungeon, using talismans. Before she could cause great disaster, I had summoned back her soul from the previous life. This spell was extremely risky, not guaranteed to succeed, but failure didn't matter. Without what she held in her hands, I could still achieve what I wanted, just taking a detour. After listening, she reflexively touched her neck. Marcus was right, I shouldn't have offended you. It's not too late to cooperate now. I peeled a tangerine and threw her half. Very sweet, try it. She thought it was real, stuffed it all in her mouth, so saw her face scrunched up. Looking at me, she couldn't help spitting it out bit by bit, gritting her teeth saying, "Cooperate then cooperate, but I absolutely won't betray my master." I snorted coldly. "I know who it is without you saying. You should think carefully. What value does someone already discarded like you still have to him?" She fell silent. I pressed the advantage, attacking psychologically first. Being loyal to him yields no results, but if you're loyal to me, even if I have to dig 3 feet into the earth, I'll find your father for you. On the road to the peace marriage, I would pass through my mother's fiefdom. After her death, the 16 provinces of Zhangdi had generals occupying mountains as kings, establishing themselves as rulers, not even regarding the government, extremely arrogant. And the first thing I did after entering the Northern Territory was to kill all the accompanying attendants. Leading 3,000 elite soldiers secretly following behind, attacking the camp overnight, summoning my mother's old subordinates. But clearly in a room full of over 10 burly men, not one submitted to me. Then continue killing. I smiled and threw out my sword, hitting the deputy general hiding behind the crowd. He had the most unremarkable appearance, but every time that leader spoke to me earlier, he waited for his opinion before daring to speak, definitely not simple. Sure enough, once he died, the hall became even more chaotic, voices of dissent rising. But after I continuously killed 3 more people, everything was cured. The whole room fell deathly silent. I spoke lightly. "Anyone else want to challenge me?" A burly man tall as an iron tower raised the meteor hammer in his hand, charging like a storm. Each footstep shaking the ground. I immediately drew my sword, pointing straight at his throat. During the action, the pendant on my neck was exposed. He froze, immediately recognizing this as the Empress's token. His expression changed, hurriedly kneeling in salute. "Drake Storm wishes to follow Princess." I glanced at his person. He received the signal, then took out the tiger tali in his hand. The rest also quickly exchanged glances, hastily surrendering their tiger tallies. But after assembling them all, one piece was still missing. Uncle's person timely reminded me, "General Forrest has business outside. Will return in a few days." After everyone dispersed, Lily's face was full of worry. "Missing one piece of the tiger tali means we can't mobilize the army." Clearly that General Forrest deliberately didn't appear. He even calculated we would rush thousands of miles to get here, so he avoided us beforehand. Seizing power must be fast. If we really wait for him to return, grass will grow on our heads. He has to be able to return first. I poured 2 cups of strong wine, handing her one. She was stunned taking it, thinking for a moment then decisively nodding. Understood. Having said that, she wanted to set off. I quickly called her back. "I'll send people with you. I heard this person has unmatched strength, not easy to deal with." "That bit of strength I don't regard at all." She smiled arrogantly, raising her hand to grab the incredibly hard black iron sword beside her, slowly twisting it into a spiral shape. This time it was my turn to be shocked. "With such strength, how did you die by my hand?" "I have strength, but not a brain like yours," she calmly replied. "You're very poisonous. Marcus already said you have long reach. Offending you means dying miserably." I didn't listen. Now I regret it immensely. I chuckled. "Sorry, did it hurt a lot?" "Just so. I also hurt you, consider us even." She clinked glasses with me. "What do you plan to do next?" "Carrot and stick." I drained the strong wine in one gulp. having beaten with the stick, naturally must reward with something sweet. These people, though not daring to oppose me on the surface anymore, I knew in their hearts they still weren't convinced. Most of my orders no one was willing to follow. Within a few days, plague suddenly appeared in the army. Not long after, rumors began spreading saying I was unlucky, bringing disaster. But I let the rumors spread everywhere. When the whole camp was shaken, under the focused gaze of thousands, I cut my hand to bleed on the altar, burned incense in offering, saved everyone's lives, thereby gaining most of the people's hearts. And why was my blood so effective? Because the medicine was administered by me. It wasn't a real plague, but just something with plague-like symptoms, but with no ability to spread. That night of the sacrifice, the antidote was dissolved into the camp's water source, just like when the poison was administered. Initially, when Uncle's person saw the rumors spreading quickly and came to discuss countermeasures, I asked him, "You must be very clear about the 16 provinces of Jiangdi submitting to the Celestial Dynasty years ago, right?" Memorized by heart. He immediately answered, "Years ago, when the sacred ancestor emperor passed away, right when the 6 tribes of Jiangdi invaded on a large scale, continuously capturing 8 cities, the regent sent people to negotiate. The other side demanded territorial compensation and marriage to a legitimate princess. But the sacred ancestor had no daughters. In that urgent moment, it was the empress's daughter. Before entering the palace, she already had a child. To stabilize the court and protect the citizens, she voluntarily went for the peace marriage as an adopted daughter. The new emperor Jingwen enfeoffed her as Princess Yuanshou to marry into Jiangdi. Over 10 years later, Princess Yuanshou married 3 times, killed 3 khans of different Jiangdi dynasties, completely controlled the grasslands, incorporated Jiangdi into the Celestial Dynasty, was enfeoffed as Prince Yuanshou with grace exceeding regulations. What a pity that after returning to the capital to resign, on the way back to Jiangdi she suddenly fell ill and died." I nodded lightly. "Continue." "But not long after she died, her daughter entered the palace as empress. 3 years later she returned to Jiangdi, recovering the military power that had been stripped from her mother. If I remember correctly, when she first set foot on the grasslands, she encountered a sudden plague, then used blood as medicine to save the citizens. Princess means, I want you to spread word that I am the descendant of the benevolent, sacred, virtuous empress. This matter, I'm afraid, isn't appropriate." He frantically waved his hands. "The benevolent, sacred, virtuous empress in the hearts of Jiangdi people ranks only after the gods and Prince Yuanshou. Her status is too noble to blaspheme." That's exactly the effect needed. I patted his shoulder, signaling him to calm down. Prince Yuanshou and the benevolent, sacred, virtuous empress spent their whole lives surpassing men, paving the way for women in this world. If they knew, they would support me too. There's nothing new under the sun. All the difficulties I encounter already have answers left in the records. Though I had gained the people's hearts and prestige, there were still 3 deputy generals who absolutely refused to submit. That day, when I was still calculating how to make them sincerely submit, suddenly a miserable cry came from the vast forest not far away. Not long after, a girl about 15 or 16 years old, covered in blood, ran out in panic, mouth continuously stammering for help. I told her to calm down and speak slowly. She was crying profusely, saying her younger brother had run into the forest, begging everyone to save him. Hearing this, everyone's expressions changed, all turning pale, silent as if acupoint struck, no one daring to speak. The sounds in the forest grew quieter and quieter. I couldn't hesitate anymore, immediately lifting my foot to mount a horse. Someone beside me held me tightly, advising that forest was forbidden, couldn't be entered casually. Seeing this, the girl knelt, begging each person one by one, but everyone turned their faces away, pushing her hands away as if avoiding plague. Finally she saw only I hadn't said anything. Tears streaming, she grabbed my robe hem, as if grasping the last life-saving straw, continuously pleading, "Princess, you are the descendant of the benevolent, sacred, virtuous empress. You are blessed. The gods won't make things difficult for you. Please save my brother. I beg you. Please save him." Before she finished, another miserable cry rang from the forest. The girl frantically kowtowed to me until her forehead bled, and I couldn't ignore it. I cracked the whip, leading the horse closer. "Princess, you cannot go in there." One by one people stood blocking my way. "A few go in." Even Lily pulled my hand. "Princess, entering the forbidden ground blasphemes the gods. You know how devoutly the people of the 16 provinces of Jiangdi believe in the gods. If you really go in, even as the reincarnation of the benevolent, sacred, virtuous empress, you can't be saved. All efforts will be wasted." I shook off her hand. "Whatever the consequences, I'll bear them alone." In the forbidden forest, black fog was everywhere. The horse under me stamped several times in place, as if encountering some invisible obstacle. Suddenly it neighed loudly and reared up, throwing me from its back, then galloped away. I followed the sounds, groping deeper inside, then saw a mass graveyard. Countless graves packed densely like a forest, roughly counting there must be thousands upon thousands. Before each grave was a nameless stone tablet without a single word. While I was still stunned in shock, a child's anguished cry rang out from afar. I immediately chased after it, following the dense graves. Finally, in the middle of the cemetery, I saw a python over 10 meters long, entirely black as ink, opening its basin-sized bloody mouth in an attacking posture toward the child. Without time to think, I rushed forward, embracing the child. By my ear was only the python's angry, piercing hiss. It quickly coiled tightly around me and the child, squeezing harder and harder, making me almost unable to breathe. When I woke up, in my blurry vision, I only saw a green snake head with a fierce face right before my eyes. I screamed in terror, reflexively swinging my fist forward. He reacted extremely fast, raising his hand as a shield, easily dissolving the punch's force, then pressing my hand down to the bed edge. "Wet bed!" I finally fully awakened, looking around to find I'd been brought back to my room. That fierce snake head from earlier turned out to be a mask worn by the person bandaging me. A bronze base with a golden crown twisted into a coiled snake shape around the head, the snake head carved in the center of the forehead, cold and eerie. Most eye-catching was the red snake coiling around his hair bun, a blood-red serpent, vivid and mystical, both terrifying and mysterious. The others in the room, seeing me awake, quickly explained, "Don't be afraid. This is our high priest, named Yandu. He's very skilled in medicine. No ailment escapes his eyes." Then wouldn't he recognize the wounds on me were self-inflicted? I was worried when the door was pushed open with a bang. Someone named Raymond called out, "High priest," then hurriedly rushed in. Just about to speak, he was swept by Yandu's ice-cold gaze. In an instant he immediately fell silent, lowering his head, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "High priest. That bride who rushed into the forbidden area has also awakened." I had heard about this bride. She was picked up from the river by a little maid, still wearing deep red wedding clothes at the time. Yandu gazed contemplatively at Raymond for a while, his deep cold eyes making the other lower his head even more, his whole body slightly trembling. After a long time he moved his gaze from Raymond, coldly sweeping over me again, leaving a brief sentence, "Take care of yourself," then stood and left. As soon as he left, Lily immediately rushed in anxiously. Seeing my condition, she was worried to death. I told her not to worry, the wounds were self-inflicted, and the snake venom was also faked using my own poison. Because when I first entered I saw the child's face and recognized him as the son of the most difficult of the 3 stubborn deputy generals. So after driving away the big snake, I immediately decided to fake injuries, making him owe me a huge favor. I just didn't know if the high priest saw through it. If he did see through it, why didn't he expose me? And if he didn't see through it, why did he tell me to take care of myself? This person was truly too strange. Lily also said the story of me saving someone had spread. Fortune for misfortune. Now everyone said I cared for the citizens, was both wise and brave, with bearing just like the benevolent, sacred, virtuous empress of old. I just smiled without answering, thinking this was just the beginning. My luck was still ahead. Not long after, the child's father, Deputy General Bell, came to thank me at my door, saying this was his only child. If anything happened to him, his whole family would be as good as dead. Especially the paternal grandmother who doted on the child, seeing him as her life. I had saved their whole family. To repay me, he decided from now on to wholeheartedly support me, even secretly telling me that on the way back General Forrest had met with misfortune. Of course I knew he met with trouble, because it was arranged by me. After he left, Lily looked at me with full admiration, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Wonderful. I calmly shook my finger. Not 2 but 3. Who else? The high priest. I looked at the busy figure far outside the window, lowering my voice. Don't you see? Even if General Forrest died, besides Deputy General Bell changing his attitude because I saved his son, the others are no different from before. Why is that? He and the Empress's people once said these deputy generals look arrogant, but actually each minds their own business, yet they all fear the true master of Jiangdi. She followed my gaze to the high priest. I nodded lightly. If I don't enter the forbidden forest, I can't force him to appear. But as long as he's willing to show himself, I'm certain I can make him stand on my side. That night, I dreamed of the high priest. The frightening mask couldn't hide his handsome features. But not long after, he suddenly transformed into a pitch-black snake, coiling up from my ankle, flicking its blood-red tongue, continuously asking if I was willing. Willing. For several consecutive days I had this bizarre dreams. I knew what I was looking for would soon be found. Though my body grew increasingly uncomfortable, I gritted my teeth and endured without speaking, but my body visibly thinned. Every time Yandu changed my medicine, he would look at me for a long time, then ask if I'd noticed anything wrong recently. I gritted my teeth saying no, leaving him helpless. Until nearly recovered, the snake in my dream had grown larger, finally transforming into a man in black robes with handsome features. His pitch-black hair was tied back with blood-red silk ribbons, his bearing bewitching and alluring, his waist supple as if bondless. Leaning affectionately on my knee, lingering and calling me, Wi-Fade. When the snake venom was completely cleared, I had been entangled with him for over a month. But that day, at the time he usually appeared, an old white-haired woman came instead. She led me across a long, winding corridor bridge, passing through the courtyard, finally stopping before a room hung with festive lanterns. Large black and red silk ribbons hung on the door, more gloomy and dark than houses celebrating joyous occasions year-round. When pushing the door open, the scent of incense hit me, making my head immediately dizzy, even the surrounding scenery gradually becoming hazy. The old woman's kind face gradually pressed close in that fog, lifting my cheek, gently coaxing, "Good girl, say you're willing, quickly say you're willing, hurry and say it." I pressed my lips tightly together, refusing to speak even unto death. Right after, it became noisy outside, as if people were continuously calling my name. Finally I struggled free from the dream drenched in sweat. Opening my eyes, I saw Yindu's worried face. He was tightly gripping my chin, continuously asking, "What did you promise him? Tell me what you promised." "Nothing." I weakly shook my head. I didn't promise anything. He seemed relieved of a burden, releasing his hand, his face still showing lingering fear. Lily anxiously quickly poured a cup of tea to help me drink. Not agreeing is good. What was in your dream wasn't incense but soul-bewitching fragrance. Just smelling it causes loss of consciousness, obeying everything heard. Fortunately your will was strong, otherwise even if we saved your body, your soul would have been imprisoned. Not only I had abnormalities, suddenly more and more people in the city fell violently ill. The son of the deputy general I had saved also had high fever that wouldn't break. Public opinion reversed again, rumors spreading that divine punishment had descended. Continuously people suggested sacrificing to the Snake King. They don't dare touch me. I looked toward the other lady, who had entered the forbidden forest with me that day. I didn't want to implicate innocent people, So on the night of the sacrifice, I secretly broke into Yondu's inner chamber. But what surprised me was I recognized her. She was the Prime Minister's daughter, already engaged to the second prince. The day I left the capital was their wedding day. Yet now, Rachel Chen, why are you here? Seeing me, she wasn't surprised at all, instead very reasonable. I ran away from the marriage. Aren't you here too? I also ran from marriage. I was even more legitimate than her. What I ran to a peace marriage while you had an imperial marriage decree. You ran, what about your father? She curled her lips in a sneer. That depends on what the second prince decides with his majesty and my father. On the wedding day, the main wife's whereabouts unknown, life or death uncertain, yet he loudly called to save Lily. He made me lose face, I made him embarrassed, we're even. Finally the high priest told me the truth. My mother had once saved the Snake King's life and made a pact with him to guard the national treasure in her place. Now the Snake King smelled my scent, mistaking me for my mother, and recognized me as master, demanding I fulfill the pact from years ago or face divine punishment. 3 days later, I wore black and red wedding clothes. Amid festive music, I entered the god's cave. The strange black Snake King coiled around me dozens of times, then suddenly shrank into a small yellow snake, wrapping around my wrist. The yellow scales glittered like falling stars. When he left his original position, I saw the box beneath him only as big as a palm. I brought the small snake on my wrist close to the box. The lid slowly opened. Inside was the imperial jade seal of Emperor Gao. Years ago he passed it to my mother, but she died unjustly on the way back to the capital. I carefully stored the jade seal. Just about to stand when I suddenly heard hoofbeats and weapons outside. Stepping out the door, I saw soldiers surrounding densely, ranks orderly. Standing at the head was none other than my uncle. I didn't want to alarm him, steadying my mind. I calmly spoke. Uncle, he smiled in response, asking gently, did Eleanor gain anything in the divine cave? Nothing. I hid deeper meaning in my words. The dark night is deep, I dare not go far. Afraid of meeting ghosts and having my conscience bite. He narrowed his eyes looking at me, inscrutable as he raised an eyebrow. Even ghosts aren't as frightening as the living. Otherwise how would they become wronged souls under the blade? I clenched my fingers tight. Inwardly furious but face unchanged, I just said, with Uncle here, Eleanor naturally fears nothing. Having said that, I walked toward his horse, secretly telling myself, must endure a bit more, just endure a bit more. Once I can present evidence to the Emperor, he'll receive his retribution. But suddenly heard him speak from behind. You actually knew all along, didn't you? I turned back with a gentle, harmless smile. Eleanor doesn't understand what Uncle is saying. This prince watched you grow up, knows how smart you are. No need to play dumb anymore. His gaze turned cold, his voice also deepening. No matter what, that palace gate, you won't step through even half a step. I looked at him coldly, mockingly opening my mouth. The more you act, the more it hurts. Uncle is indeed more skilled. Still, Eleanor is clever and quick. He curved his lips again, revealing that familiar mocking smile. Uncle didn't raise you in vain, knowing you'd find the jade seal for this prince. Fine then, speak truthfully. No more acting. I coldly questioned him. Was it really you who rebelled and usurped the throne, framed my mother, and annihilated the Khan's army? He didn't answer, just extended his hand with an arrogant gesture. Give me that thing. Considering the years of nurturing, this prince won't make things difficult for you. My heart ached like being cut, forcibly suppressing it, tears brimming. Though I already knew the answer clearly, I still desperately sought confirmation. Tell me, was it you who killed my mother? His expression darkened, his eyes cold as snow on bones, gritting out, hand it over. I won't give it to you. I stubbornly looked at him, the hatred in my heart surging like violent waves. Irvin, if I die, I won't give it to you. He sneered, contempt clear on his face. That's not for you to decide. But it's also not for you to determine. Following that, a cold shout rang out. Lily stepped out from the crowd to block before me. Uncle's expression immediately changed upon seeing her. You're not dead. Disappointing you. Lily coldly looked at him, her tone full of mockery. He still appeared leisurely calm as usual. Then it seems you don't want to find your father anymore. I already found him. Lily snatched the black cloth bag from her hand, revealing a blood-soaked human head. It's General Forrest whom I sent her to intercept and kill. She laughed coldly, looking toward Uncle. I send regards to your highness on behalf of my father. Horror clearly showed on his face. You, how could? Lily stepped back half a step, gently patting my chest. The student surpasses the teacher. Your highness isn't the only smart person in this world. Having said that, she forcefully kicked the head rolling all the way to Uncle's feet. This traitorous dog betrayed my mother, causing the entire convoy of 300 to die. He should have thought of today's outcome back then. Good, very good. Uncle tried to hide his shock, returning to his usual calm appearance. This prince has always liked capable young people. Rest assured I'll prepare good coffins for you both. Before he finished, another cold shout rang from afar. Life and death still unknown. Princeless shouldn't conclude so hastily. In the blink of an eye, thousands of troops pressed close, led by Marcus with all the elite of the Imperial Guards. Marcus walked through the crowd to stand before me, then turned to face Uncle, his bearing proud, clearly confronting him. Upon seeing him, Uncle's expression changed slightly. Didn't you already hand over military power? I lied to you. Marcus looked at him with mocking eyes. Though the evidence in my hands can't directly prove your wolfish ambitions, it's enough to make His Majesty suspicious. He and I performed this play precisely to lure you into revealing your fox tale. He paused, then continued, but an old fox is still an old fox, truly patient. Without Eleanor, it would be hard to force you to show your true form. Uncle narrowed his eyes, laughing coldly. So what if the Emperor trusts you, without evidence, still can't do anything to me? Who says there's no evidence? Eleanor. Marcus turned to me, extending his hand, just about to speak when he was immediately cut off by a shout. Eleanor, do you still want Iris's life? As he finished speaking, someone brought forward the sister of the child I had saved, controlling her with a sword. She had stayed behind wanting to repay me, but unexpectedly was captured by him. From struggling too hard, the sword had already cut through skin. Fresh red blood dripped down her neck, yet she still stubbornly didn't make a sound. He laughed coldly. You thought sending everyone away first would let you sit back and wait for victory. I was both worried and angry. You dare touch them? He smiled. As long as you give me that thing, they'll be fine. I bit my lip hard. My people had the advantage in numbers, weapons were also more elite. Even if you get that thing, you can't escape. That's not your concern. He remained leisurely as always. Give it to me. What if I don't? You have no choice. He looked at me dismissively, his tone full of certainty. Before he finished, he'd already heard urgent hoofbeats approaching from afar. Looking back, it was his reinforcements arriving. Numbers several times the Imperial Guards, coordinating inside and out with his Manor's soldiers, forming a sweeping encirclement. The situation reversed in an instant. I looked around,
my voice growing quieter. Right here. Uncle couldn't hear clearly what I said, so he knelt on one knee, lowering his ear to my mouth. We're right here, right here. Blood continuously gushed from my mouth. I rolled my eyes looking at him, suddenly drawing the golden hairpin from my chest, stabbing straight into his carotid artery. This was the hairpin Uncle had personally chosen, that Auntie had placed in my hair on my wedding day. I returned it to him. He suddenly stiffened, unable to believe as he clutched his neck. Fresh red blood poured from between his fingers, staining his clothes red. I flipped over to stand, kicking hard at his knee, forcing him to kneel. Others immediately rushed forward, pinning him to the ground. My swordsmanship was taught by him, but he himself once said, "The student surpasses the teacher, blue surpasses indigo." He could no longer defeat me. He stared at me full of horror, as if unable to believe he would die by my hand like this. Everyone automatically made way, and what he had to face were the tens of thousands of graves opposite God's cave. All the officers in armor, hearts holding the memorial tablets of the 100,000 wronged souls of the Khan's army, who died unjustly. I looked at him, coldly saying, You were wrong. They didn't come to be buried with me, but to witness your ending with their own eyes. Heavy rain poured down. The injustice of 10 years was finally washed clean. In my previous life I died from Charles Quinn's assassination. Before dying, everywhere I looked were corpses lying everywhere, blood flowing like rivers. I truly couldn't bear to see that scene one more time. So I gambled with my life, betting on his trust in me. Betting that even unto death, he couldn't imagine the child he watched grow from infancy, who had never lied to him once, would use her own life as bait. Mouth saying she'd tell him where the jade seal was hidden, but actually pouring out my last breath, without hesitation stabbing the golden hairpin into his corroded artery, cutting off his dream of becoming emperor. As long as he died, his troops would be like headless snakes, scattering like dust, no longer fearsome. I rushed back to the capital overnight. Rachel Chen was already waiting at the city gate. Seeing me from afar, she anxiously ran over. The princess has led troops into the palace. Recently the 5 princes have been fighting fiercely for the throne. Tonight the emperor is gravely ill. They've all entered the palace, fighting to the death. The princess has become the fisherman reaping the benefits. I immediately led troops into the palace to protect the emperor. Before reaching the palace of diligent government, I heard Princess Tiffany mocking the emperor saying, "You looked down on women. Now it's time to pay the price." But my case hasn't been overturned yet, so I had to block before the emperor. She was originally reasonable. After hearing me explain everything from beginning to end and reviewing all the evidence, including the posthumous edict from the founding emperor that mother hid in the silver treasury, she immediately said, "Then I won't compete with you anymore. If I don't follow our ancestors' edict and usurp the throne, after I die in 100 years, my descendants will follow my example. When the world falls into chaos, it's still the common people who suffer." Everything went so smoothly I couldn't believe it. "Aren't you afraid I'm using a fadic to deceive you?" She laughed, turning to smile at the emperor. "Father, the founding emperor's edict also mentioned you." Saying this, she read aloud 5 characters from the edict, the powerful strokes piercing through the paper. "You bastard, look clearly at me." The entire edict was mostly filled with countless wild cursive strokes cursing the emperor. Only the bottom left corner, near the jade seal stamp, had a paragraph praising my mother effusively, then clearly writing about passing the throne to her. Then followed more insults to the emperor, written to the point of almost running out of space. My maternal grandmother was originally free, spirited and unconstrained. This masterpiece could only be her handwriting. Absolutely no one else in the world could produce it. The emperor only glanced once before being struck as if stabbed, continuously retreating, staggering and falling to the ground. I looked at his struggling face, saying, "Still afraid at this point? How well did my mother treat you? Taught you to read, taught you writing, saved your life, brought you out of the cold palace, treated you like a real brother. Yet you killed the founding emperor and usurped the throne." He continuously shook his head, curling up full of regret. I was just afraid. Afraid of those days without power or influence, being trampled underfoot by others. That Charles Quinn was even worse than me, that was his own sister, yet he actively proposed cooperating with me. "He's dead," I coldly spoke. "You'll soon follow him." The emperor nearly wept. "For my sake, I once treated you well, even let you ride on my shoulders like a horse." I shook my head with a faint smile. "That was for your reputation of benevolence. Mother died unjustly because of your usurpation, yet you showed yourself as someone who knew how to treat people well, making people think you showed mercy even to a traitor's daughter, still remembering old master-student bonds. But you dared harm even your adoptive mother, and if you truly ascended legitimately, why didn't you present the edict and jade seal? Because you don't have them, right?" As I spoke, I opened my palm. The jade seal he dreamed of day and night was now in my hand. He rushed forward like a madman, snatching the jade seal then smashing it hard on the ground, immediately shattering into pieces. But right after breaking it, he panicked and dove down, tightly holding one piece in his hand, screaming like a madman. "I am the emperor. I am the legitimate one. You all die, all of you deserve death." His frenzied movements were too fast. Princess Tiffany couldn't stop him in time, could only stare at me wide-eyed. "The jade seal is broken, what do we do now?" "It's fake," I calmly replied. "You dared give him a fake jade seal. Am I stupid enough to give him the real one?" I forced the emperor to issue an edict overturning the case, thoroughly investigating the whole truth, and made him write an edict of guilt. Then confined him in the very cold palace my mother had once rescued him from. In the last snow before the 3rd month of spring, he held my mother's memorial tablet in his arms. In thin clothes, he froze to death in the corner of the cold palace. The clothing and accessories on his body exactly matched how my mother looked when she rescued him from the cold palace years ago. Everything settled, all grudges turned to smoke. Yet Lily secretly probed me. We've all laughed and let bygones be bygones now. What about Marcus? He's not like you. I cut her off. He's not like anyone. Between him and me, we're forever separated by a life that never came into this world. But you were never pregnant. Lily both advised and blamed. In the previous life after you wrote the divorce letter planning to leave, he was afraid you'd return to Princely, had no choice but to use desperate measures to keep you. Giving you medicine was also to detoxify. Before the case was overturned, he didn't want you to know Princely was the mastermind, even less wanted you to know he'd been poisoning you since childhood to get the jade seal. Even throwing you in the mass grave was just to conveniently save you in secret. He really was doing it for your own good. I don't need him doing things for my own good, I calmly said. He's a life partner, someone I love. Being honest with each other, respecting my wishes, that's the responsibility and duty he should have. I saw the memorial again. It was Marcus's request to guard the frontier. I only wrote one word, approved. Not long after, I issued a decree summoning Yandu to the capital. She became the first female state preceptor in history, and the first divination she cast for me was, 2 women competing for the throne, twin phoenixes become emperors. I asked her to explain more clearly. She answered, in the timeline before your rebirth, the one who became emperor was Princess Tiffany Chen. She overturned the case for you, forced the emperor to issue an edict of guilt. Her handling method was exactly like yours now. I was silent for a very long time, unable to help feeling heartbroken. The emperor never paid attention to her. For her to ascend the throne, she must have gone through much hardship. Yendu revealed a subtle smile for the first time. 8 lifetimes of transmigration and all are reborn people. Not suffering would be strange. This story teaches us that true strength lies not in power or status, but in the courage to face the truth and defend justice. Eleanor sacrificed herself, enduring pain to overthrow betrayers and vindicate the innocent. Sometimes, to protect what matters most, we must sacrifice our most precious possessions. Yet it is through such sacrifice that we reveal our true worth as human beings. The greatest victories often come from the willingness to lose everything for a righteous cause. End of story. If you enjoyed it, please give me a like, and don't forget to follow me to hear many more new stories. This story teaches us that justice often demands the ultimate sacrifice. Eleanor's journey reveals how betrayal can come from those we trust most. Even family who raised us with apparent love. True strength isn't in revenge, but in breaking cycles of violence while protecting the innocent. She chose to gamble with her own life rather than watch history repeat its bloodshed. The story reminds us that power corrupts even the most righteous causes, and those who seek justice must be willing to pay its price. Most importantly, it shows that women throughout history have possessed the courage and wisdom to reshape their destinies, even when society deemed them merely pawns in men's games. Sometimes, winning means accepting loss with dignity.